My name is Lisa. Standing in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, I watched as my father, Henry, in his expensive tuxedo, was holding court near the stage. My brothers, Ethan and Max, flanked him like bodyguards, laughing at unfunny jokes. They thought they had won, that they had bullied me into submission. Little did they know I was about to turn the tables. I remembered the day I found out the truth about my pay. I had just placed the payroll report on Henry's desk when he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Women are bad investments, Lisa. Just keep your looks and find a husband to support you." I had discovered that Ethan and Max were making $200,000 a year with full benefits, while I, classified as a 1099 contractor, was making a mere $50,000 with no benefits. Henry sneered at me. "Stop complaining. I'm doing you a favor. Your brothers are building a future. You're just here temporarily." At that moment, I realized he wasn't my father. He was just a terrible boss. And I knew exactly how to use the contract he forced me to sign against him. I picked up my bag and said, "If I'm a contractor, then today is my last day." He laughed as I walked out, thinking I was throwing a tantrum. I had worked in the high-stakes world of New York event production for 6 years. Ethan and Max were the face men. They wore $5,000 custom-made suits, showed up late with lattes, and took clients to long lunches. They promised the world, but did little actual work. I, on the other hand, was the ghost producer. I remember the time when we were launching a new luxury watch brand at the Hudson Yards. An hour before the doors opened, the lighting rig failed. Ethan was downstairs at the bar flirting with a model and didn't answer his phone. I climbed a ladder in my silk blouse, bypassed the breaker, and rerouted the power from the backup generator. When the lights came on, Ethan walked in, patted me on the shoulder, and took the credit. He got the commission, and I took the subway home because I couldn't afford an Uber. Henry had been stealing my labor and my self-worth since I was a child. He always told me that Ethan and Max were wild but charming, while I was the reliable one, the glue that held everything together. I thought that if I worked hard enough, they would eventually recognize my value. But I was wrong. They just wanted a mule, not a partner. The contractor status was not just a financial move to save on taxes. It was psychological warfare. By denying me benefits, equity, and a proper job title, Henry was constantly telling me that I was an outsider, temporary. But he made a huge mistake. He forgot that I saw everything. While they were busy building their personal brands, I was learning every aspect of the company, becoming the one who built the engine. 2 days after I found the payroll file, Ethan missed a critical deadline. We were producing a launch party for a Japanese tech conglomerate at the MoMA. The $75,000 catering deposit was due at noon, but Ethan was at a lunch with 3 bottles of wine. The catering company called me in a panic, threatening to pull out. I went to Henry's office. Ethan missed the wire. "We're going to lose the caterer," I said. Henry didn't call Ethan. Instead, he told me to fix it. When I said I couldn't, he told me to lie to the vendor, to take the blame for Ethan. That was the last straw. It wasn't just about the money. It was about my reputation. After I lied to the vendor and took the blame, I went back to Henry's office and asked for a title change. I wanted to be named director of production. Henry sighed and said it was an optics issue. Our clients were old, fashioned, and preferred to deal with men for strategy. He said making me a director would confuse the hierarchy. Looking at the organizational chart on the wall, I saw Ethan's, Max's, and Henry's photos, but not mine. I realized that the contractor classification was not just about tax evasion. It was about erasing me from the company's history. But it also set me free. I didn't cry or argue. I opened a browser and searched for the best intellectual property lawyer in New York. The next morning, I met my college friend, Tom, at a top-notch law firm. I slid the independent contractor agreement Henry had forced me to sign 3 years ago across the table. Tom read Clause 4 and started laughing. Is this a joke? Did he download this template from the internet? I explained that Henry wanted to save on legal fees. Tom told me that under U.S. copyright law, as a 1099 contractor, and with no intellectual property transfer clause in the contract, I owned the copyright to all the work I had done. I had written the script, CAD drawings, and run of show for the Titan Gala just last week. Tom said I owned it, and we immediately filed for expedited copyright registration with the Library of Congress. I also knew I needed an insurance policy. I accessed my cloud backup of voicemails. For 6 years, Henry had left me abusive messages when he was stressed. I transferred 47 audio files to a secure drive and gave them to Tom. He said these would be leverage if Henry tried to sue me. I then filed the incorporation papers for my own company, LJ Productions. I was no longer the daughter. I was the competition. Back in the ballroom, I walked in wearing a red gown that looked like armor. Henry spotted me, and his smile faltered. I walked straight to Mr. Harris, the billionaire funding the gala. I handed him a folder with my copyright registration and a cease and desist order. The show you're about to watch is stolen. Mitchell and Company doesn't own it. I do, I said. When the lights dimmed and Henry took the stage, he praised Ethan and Max and dismissed me. That's when I triggered the feedback on the LED screen, which flashed intellectual property of LJ Productions. Unauthorized use prohibited. I stepped onto the stage and told the room the truth. For 6 years, Henry refused to pay me a proper salary. He classified me as a 1099 contractor to save on taxes and used a generic contract that forgot the intellectual property transfer clause. Under U.S. copyright law, I own this event. Mr. Harris stood up and asked if it was true. Henry stammered that it was just for taxes. Mr. Harris said it was incompetence and fired Henry. He told me to continue the show and invoice him in the morning. Henry followed me off stage and offered me a partnership and equity, but it was too late. I told him I had spent money on the best IP lawyer to take back what I had built. The fallout was severe. The cease and desist led to an IRS audit for employee misclassification, and the fines were huge. Mr. Harris moved his $40 million portfolio to LJ Productions, and others followed. Mitchell and Company collapsed within 6 months. Henry still claims I stole his legacy, but I reclaimed what was rightfully mine. I am Lisa, and I am not temporary. I am the owner.